Okay, so we are covering a massive question today, and this is the big question in the photography industry and even the service-based industry of should you list your prices on your website? Should you list your prices on your website, or should you not list them and have people reach out and then kind of take them through a sales process where you present your pricing in a, email, pricing guide, sales call, whatever have you, okay? And this all starts with a reel that I posted. I stitched a bride who was very aggressively angry on Instagram, who was basically kind of roasting wedding professionals for not listing their pricing on their website. And I stitched it and said, hey, good for these wedding professionals. I think that's a smart business move to not just flat out list your prices on your website transparently for everybody to see. And so then it kind of sparked this conversation both on that reel, even in my business blueprint community, my coaching community. And I've just noticed over the years, like within the photography industry, and even in other industries, a lot of opinions and a lot of pushback and controversy. Even on threads, I've seen this, and I actually love that. I think it's a discussion we need to have. I think it used to be that with this question, people just did all the same thing and called it a day. And it was just like, yeah, we just all do this and we don't really question why. But I think we can do better than that. And I just want to have this discussion. I just want to talk about it. Let's weigh the pros and cons. I have a lot of notes that I've written out here today. And I want to talk through them with you and just kind of have this open dialogue. And as a photographer, we're mainly talking as a photographer, by the way. I know there's maybe other people that tune in, but at the same time, I'm really going to be speaking specifically to the photographers today. Should you list your prices on your website or should you not? Now, I first want to identify what are the two sides of this, right? And why do they believe what they believe? And I'm going to do my best to kind of cover maybe why they believe what they believe. And yeah. So side one, you got list your prices people, right? And just the opinion of listing your prices. And I think mainly this is because of, it creates trust, it lowers buyer frustration on your website, less wasted time on both ends so that they don't have to reach out and be like, what are your prices? Oh, your prices are too high. I don't want to do that. And then just kind of ends in a ghosting and yeah. Just transparency in general, honesty in general, maybe another reason. And then maybe another big reason for people is they're just thinking, well, this is what I would want as a customer when I browse other people's websites. I want to see prices too. So that's who I want to be as a business owner. I think those are all very valid arguments for the record. And valid arguments. So side two, you have the people who don't list your prices. Maybe get them on a sales call, maybe at least get them in your sales funnel, get them on your email, whatever it is. And these people would say that because it's just been an industry standard for many years, and even just like in service-based industries, just kind of the standard of not listing everything on your website so that competition can't undercut you and see everything that you do. Another one would be maybe so that the client has to reach out to you instead of just browsing your email, or your website. And then I think the two big ones are you have a higher conversion rate on average when you're selling at a higher price point and value when you get them in like a sales funnel, in a sales call, instead of just them browsing your website. And then another big one is going to be that you get to more customize, more personalize their pricing experience for the client instead of, again, just having it on your website. So also very valid arguments. I think both sides are valid arguments. The one thing I want you to, before we move any further, the one thing I want you to really understand and really be open to is just entertain the thought, the idea that some of what I'm going to say today, just talking about this, might change your mind a little bit. It might change your mind. And I wouldn't be so stuck in this is what I believe, whether it's this side or this side, and I have to do this. Because there may be factors you haven't thought of. I know for me, my mindset has changed on this. I think it's still changing. I actually don't even want to put this out and say, this is what I believe and this is what I believe forever. Because I actually think I could change on this. I've already changed so much on this topic. And so if you don't have that malleable kind of mindset when you come into this episode's probably just going to be like rage bait for you. You're going to be in the comments like, he's so wrong. This is wrong. And I'm right because whatever. Or it's going to be a helpful episode for you. So it's really your choice, rage bait or help for you, your choice. Anyway, so up front, I want you to know what camp I'm in. This one or this one. I'm in actually neither. And I know that sounds like, oh, whoa, but like, no, it's serious. I actually am not a purebred list your prices person or don't list your prices person. I actually kind of take a hybrid of the two, but I'm not going to tell you what I do specifically or my recommendation to you until the end of the episode. But first, I kind of want to talk about the biggest drawbacks of these two sides that maybe you haven't thought about, okay? Because I think people think that there's no drawbacks between this side and there's no drawbacks between this side, and they just choose the one that they don't think there's any drawbacks with. But I do think there are some drawbacks. So I want to talk about what they are. So I got 6 reasons why on this camp, listing your full prices on your website, full price transparency is not, in my opinion, a best business practice in its purebred form. Okay, six reasons. So the first reason being, the luxury market doesn't do it. Other service-based industries don't do it, like attorneys, accountants, healthcare, ad agencies, financial planners, etc. They don't do this. They don't. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, do they know something we don't? Why are they not doing it? And why am I doing it? Like, why aren't they doing it? You know what I'm saying? I can also tell you this, like I've been in high ticket coaching consulting, both on the seller end of it and on the, I guess, buyer end of it, client side end of it. And I can tell you right now, that industry doesn't as well. They do not list their prices on their website. Like that's not a thing that you do. You get them on a sales call and then you actually sell them at that high price point on the call with a personal connection. And you have to remember in all this, as I'm talking about this, you might be like, well, there's other industries that they do list their prices like most industries do. Yes, but are they an industry you should be comparing yourself to or taking your cues from? For example, you are not, as a photographer, as a service-based business owner, you are not in the physical or digital goods market, most likely. You are in the specialty services market. Like that's what you do. That's very different. So like the way Target is going to sell shampoo is not the way you should be selling wedding photography. Those are vastly different. And I will say in that vein, maybe there's kind of a caveat there of if your prices are pretty low for your industry. Let's say they're like maybe 500, as low as like 500 for a wedding, all the way up to maybe even like 3,000 USD in, let's say, just say for United States. I would say you are probably on the far low end of the, maybe of your market. And so I do think listing your prices transparently on your website could be perfectly great for you. So that's why I see a lot of people, they're like, well, I've done so much better listing my prices on my website. And I want to be like, what are your prices? Because to be honest with you, I don't think I've heard a single person I'm sure someone is out there and you'll let me know if you are, but I haven't really heard many people who are like, hey, yeah, I book for $10,000 plus photography and I list them on my website. I don't see that very much. Okay. In fact, I don't even know if I've ever seen that. So the price does differ. I'd say once you get into like 5,000 plus, it doesn't sell well to just plop that number on your website and expect people to be like, 5,000, yep, 7,000, yep, 10,000, yep, 15,000, yep, sign me up. A website, that's a lot for a website to lift. That's some heavy lifting for just your website to do and not you to personally be involved with. Okay, so a couple other quick ones here of reasons why not to. Number 2, it can attract price shoppers. Reason being, if someone is just skimming through your website and basically like control Fing for a $sign on your website, to me, like that's like the definition of a price shopper. And so if that's all someone's looking for on my website and they're mad that they can't find like my exhaustive list of pricing, that's not really my target market anyways. And so I don't want to attract those type of people who are just looking for like, what are the prices? Because that's all that matters to me. Number 3, you also are showing your hand to your competition. If you are showing all the prices and the offer, how you structure things, all your packages, you're basically giving your entire competition your entire hand of cards, which is fine for some people, and maybe some people don't care. But you are definitely forfeiting some a little bit of your edge there in many senses. I don't think it's a main one, but it's worth saying. Number 4 reason why not to, this is so important. Please listen to me when I say this. If you list your prices on your website and it's all right there for people, just like, they can pick and choose whatever they want at that price point, boom. You are positioning your offer as a product in a shop rather than an experience from an expert, parentheses you, okay? So very important, let me read that again. You're positioning your offer as a product in a shop rather than an experience from an expert. This is important because you are not Target selling shampoo, okay? No, you are an expert in your field who they will be personally hiring and working with. They're not just paying for photos or an album. They're paying for you to work with you for your expertise and your experience and your eye and your opinion and your artistry and your creativity, right? And they're getting an experience from you. That's massively different than just a bottle of shampoo, right? So different. And oftentimes what ends up happening if you just list these prices is you end up placing the value on just the product alone, not on you. And then you leave the choosing the product up to them when really you should be guiding them into like, hey, let me tell you what package you should go with. Let me tell you what add-ons you're going to want. You can so often upsell people in that way instead of them just like seeing it all and deciding which they think they need, which so often, and we as photographers know this, people don't know what they actually need, right? They're like, oh yeah, I need a 6-hour day. And you're like, you are definitely having a 10-hour day and you definitely need that. Reason number 5, this is probably maybe the most important. You leave 99% of the sell, like the sales, you leave that, you leave the sell for a high price, the high value experience of expertise, highly personal sale, which is what you are offering people. You leave it all up to the exchange between your website and the mind of the buyer. And those two work together to get you the sale. But you are not in it. Like the only you part that's in it is your website that you set up. But like your website isn't like a person that can connect with a person, right? And people want to buy from people, not from businesses. And so you kind of leave this massive opportunity on the table because you just leave it all up to your website and the mind of the buyer. And these two things, I mean, your website can sell decent, but the mind of the buyer doesn't know how to like navigate a sale very well. Like you could help them, all right? And I will say this, many people spend over their budget. Like many clients will spend over their budget when someone is on a call with them, when someone upsells them, or when somebody, as the photographer, they know how to sell. They know how to sell. And so if someone says, like so often people will say like, oh, I just list all my prices on my website and it's always better. To be honest with you, and I don't mean this in a condescending way at all, but I do think when people say that, I'm like, okay, so most likely this person doesn't really know in-person sales. Because if they did, like when you know in-person sales and you know the power of in-person sales, you know how much you forfeit if you don't actually do them. All right, especially with high ticket pricing. And us photographers, we are all talking about high ticket prices here. If you got 3 zeros behind it, it's a pretty high ticket offer, okay? And so you are forfeiting things like handling client objections, personal connection, asking them questions that get them to sell themselves as the client instead of you just like yapping at them, okay? Number 6, last one, and this is just more food for thought rather than like this is like an actual like really important reason. It's the idea that people have done this for years and generations even, and it's an age-old understanding and practice that while listing prices might increase initial engagement in some senses, the conversion rate is often higher when there is a personalized consultative sales process, especially for high value services. It's a very recent phenomenon that we even have websites to just list our own pricing on, okay? So I'd argue that if the majority of service-based industries and luxury industries have practiced this way for decades, maybe even for generations because websites didn't even used to exist for most of time, I would pause, if I were you, before thinking that going against all of them is just an absolute no-brainer and the correct move and no one question it, okay? So for what that's worth. And to sum up, all these 6, to the people who just say, hey, list your prices on your website, there's no drawbacks, I could not disagree more. I think that's a very one-dimensional, naive approach to presenting your pricing. There are many nuances at play here. There's pricing psychology, there's selling psychology. I mean, if I were to even ask you, hey, you know, why wouldn't you just list your prices on a random tab on your website that says pricing this price? And it's just like blank white sheet of paper. It just says pricing this price. You'd be like, no. And I'd say, why? And you'd say, because presentation matters, because the how you present that pricing does matter. And so in the same way, I believe that you just listing your prices, I think you're taking away from some of the how leverage that you could be putting into that presentation. Okay, so on the flip side, let's look at the other side. Here's why I think everyone not listing any prices on their website is also not a best business practice either. And I think these are going to be much more brief and straightforward because I think they're just less nuanced and they're more like the average person can just get it quicker. So I'll probably go quicker through these. Number 1, buyer frustration when searching your website and they can't find your prices. If you don't list any price on your website, the buyer's just like, okay, I have zero like understanding of where this price point, where they're at price point wise, if they're going to fit in my budget. And it's just really frustrating. Like you're going to piss some people off, right? So it's very understandable why that would be a big drawback. Number 2, if you don't list your prices on your website, I'm talking no prices. I'm talking no dollar signs. You break trust in many senses because the client can think to themselves, and I've had this happen to me before in certain situations, not really in terms of like a website, but just as a client of people where they like present their pricing after they see something specific from me that like shares a little bit about where I'm at maybe financially. The client has to wonder, are your prices malleable? Are they changeable based on who you think I am and how much money I have? And so there's a little bit of like broken trust there, if you will. Number 3, in many senses, you are running the risk of wasting their time and your time if you list 0 prices on your website for obvious reasons. They have to reach out to you. They get the number that's, 2 times more than their budget was ever going to be spending. And they ghost you. You're following up with them. Both your time is wasted because it was never meant to be in the first place. You weren't even remotely close. Number 4, reason why maybe it's not smart to list no prices on your website. It might make you look insecure about your own pricing. If you have $0 signs on your website and you are selling something, it might be like, well, what's this person trying to hide? Like, are they insecure about their pricing? What is it? Number 5, I think, and this is something that I have definitely more recently thought of, if your industry competition lists some pricing, I think that's worth taking note of. Now, I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, watch what your competition is doing and just do what they do. Not at all. But I do think that if you have, let's say, an entire industry as a whole who are listing either a price point or some sort of price range starting number, and you don't list anything. And so, out of like the 5 photographers they reach out to, 4 of them had dollar signs in their website and some sort of context, and you're the 5th one who had nothing. I think that's a bad look, and I think that can make you look like a kind of a pill to work with because you won't list anything, right? So it's just something to think about. I don't think you want to be the only person in your industry who doesn't give someone some sort of price indicator. To sum up these 5 points on why I think not listing any prices on your website is not a great business practice. There's less nuances of this side of things because I think it's just more cut and dry and straightforward, but hopefully you can understand kind of what that side, the drawbacks of that side as well. So we kind of have looked at both sides and dissected them, hopefully has helped you understand more of a cross-section map as opposed to just like a one-dimensional view, because I don't think this is a one-dimensional topic, like I've said. And I think if you think that it is, you're just not looking deep enough, and you're truly not taking, again, a balanced approach and an approach that's going to help you in the long run instead of just trying to make it easy. So now let's cover, what do I recommend myself? So when I talk about what I recommend, I want you to understand my full goal. So my full goal is to take the advantages from everything that we covered in the not listing prices side of things like higher price conversions, things like getting them on the sales call to sell them more personally and build that personal connection. And then I also want to take the advantages of the listing your prices side, and I want to put those two together in kind of a hybrid of the two, while also eliminating the disadvantages of both sides as much as possible. So what I practice and teach, again, is a hybrid of the two sides, which is to first list your starting and or average prices on your website, but not your full exhaustive list of prices and everything in the packages on your website with customizations and add-ons and all the applicable pricing. I then will send a pricing guide with basically all of the pricing and the packages and all of that after the client reaches out in an inquiry, and I do this over email, and then I leave the rest to cover and kind of upsell in person over a video sales call. So why do I do this approach? So the first reason I do this is because you ultimately are listing an average and or starting prices on your website, which eliminates those drawbacks of not listing anything. And those are the drawbacks that we kind of already discussed, in that you're eliminating buyer frustration. You are building that trust into your pricing, which is somewhat public now since you've shared it. So you have like that trust of like, hey, like I'm not just quoting you only in this. And then you also eliminate most, I'd say, wasted time with you and them without forfeiting the sales that you could have by, again, keeping in a little bit of that curiosity on the client end of them not knowing the full scope of everything. But again, most of all, you're eliminating that wasted time because they still know kind of what your price point is. It also establishes confidence for you, or number 4, because you're saying, hey, like I'm not afraid to talk numbers. Here it is, right out for you. Like here's like a ballpark of what I'm talking about here. But again, you're still leaving a little bit of curiosity. And then it also keeps you competitive in your industry in the sense that you're not sharing everything with all of your competition, with all of your clients, but you also are kind of like keeping a little bit of cards close to yourself. And then you're also making sure that you do have some pricing, because if others in your industry have some pricing, it's probably good for you to have some pricing as well. But then on the advantages of not listing your prices side, which we talked about as well, has its own advantages. This method also, it maintains some curiosity on the client end to reach out. Like I've been saying, it's giving them something, but not everything. It also gets them into your sales funnel where you can guide the process as the expert, not just like you giving them a product, right? It's you guiding them through the process as the expert and developing that personal connection with you. And then it also ideally gets them on a sales call where you can then close the sale and get them booked. And then even beyond this, of course, you have the pricing guide. So the pricing guide is what you send after they reach out. It takes it all a step further in that it further eliminates that client frustration of not seeing prices because you're sharing the prices with them right there. You're further building trust with them because you're sending them what they're asking for. You're further eliminating any wasted time because boom, they don't have to do a call with you because if you're not the right price for them fundamentally, because they can see the prices in the guide. And then it further establishes confidence that you're not afraid to talk about numbers. And then like a cherry on top, if you get them on the sales call, which is the goal, by the way, that's like the goal of that initial email that you send them. It should be to get them on that sales call. Which, by the way, is oftentimes easy to do if they inquire and they kind of check out the pricing guide and they're like, A-okay. And you have a scheduling link, which don't do the back and forth of like, oh, does this time work for you? Does this time work for you? No, have a scheduling link. Get something in Calendly or with your CRM that does a scheduling link. What that does, that sales call does, is it gives you a chance to personally connect with them. If you are going through, let's say, a store and you're trying to find, let's say, a new outfit, right? And you have someone come up to you, and us introverts don't like this, but a lot of times it is still helpful for many of us when someone comes up to us and they're like, hey, like, how can I help you? How can I find this exact thing that you're looking for? And you're like, well, I'm looking for this maybe you're looking for a 3-piece suit if you're a guy. Maybe you're looking for like, I don't know, a 3-piece outfit. Honestly, it doesn't even matter what gender you are. You could be looking for any sort of like 3-piece outfit. And you're like, yeah, I kind of want a little bit of this. I kind of want a little bit of this, whatever this is. And so this person kind of walks you through their store and they're like, yeah, let me share with you this piece right here and this piece right here. And I think this would go really well with this right here and these shoes and, whatever. And by the end of it, you're like best friends with this person because they're like helping you so much. And maybe that's a bad example. Maybe it's a situation where you're looking for something that you don't have a strong opinion on. Maybe it's like a piece of jewelry. You're like, I just know I want a piece of jewelry, but I don't know exactly what it is, right? Maybe you're in a situation where you're buying for somebody else. I find this is like the case that I need it the most when I'm buying for someone else, like my wife, and I'm like, shoot, I don't know exactly what she wants. Like, can you help me out here? Like, what do women buy for like XYZ, right? And then some person will help me. And that personal process of helping me through the sales process is so helpful. And it's so much more high touch than just having you like pick something off the shelf and be like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go with this. It looks the best. Like, let's just hope it works, right? But you get to, on that sales call, you get to create that personal connection. It gives you an opportunity to ask them the right questions, to hear what they actually want, and to hear them even sell themselves on you and tell you why they want to hire you without even you having to say anything. It allows you to guide them to the right packages, allows you to upsell them, do add-ons, and then it also allows you to close them with a call to action, with an ask for the sale, right? And then if there's any client objections, you can handle those client objections personally on that call. So this is my recommendation right there. And the strategy behind it that is tested over and over again, both by my own business and my coaching students' businesses. And real quick, by the way, if you want a kind of free head start on this directly from me, I give away for free my inquiry email response template that I use and my coaching students use. And we send it to new inquiries when someone sends a new inquiry to us. Highly, highly tested. I have like tons and tons of reviews and screenshots and DMs from people being like, this literally changed my inquiry process. And you can basically see from the words that I give you on that inquiry response email template how I handle that initial contact and how I send the pricing guide, how I send the scheduling link. So scroll down in the description below to download it for free, like yours, just from me. And if you like that, and you want more along that same vein, I will also say, get on my waiting list for my Business Blueprint coaching program. That's where we really take a more holistic view, even more than just the inquiry response email, because that's one puzzle piece, but we take a holistic view of that inquiry to booking process, and we look at all the facets of it, and we transform it from the top to bottom. Even it's kind of like the student favorite sales call script. People love it. People go nuts for that thing because it's like a sales machine once they start using it. So if you want to get into the Business Blueprint, make sure you get on the waiting list. We can really dive deep into your inquiry to booking process. It's one of the first things we tackle in the Business Blueprint. So drop down into the description as well. Get on the waiting list for that. So there you have it, you guys. I thank you so much for just listening and for giving me the opportunity to maybe speak into something that maybe you had a strong opinion about. And hopefully I was able to give you a more nuanced view of this, depending on which side you were on. If you learned something new today, I would appreciate it so much if you just shared it with a friend that you think would find it really helpful with. Maybe it sparks a conversation between you and they. Maybe you can even share it on your Instagram stories. If it's on YouTube, you can comment on the YouTube video. Let me know your thoughts. But I'd love for this conversation to continue because I think it's a really important one. So, hey, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you back here next time.